the bandwagon and was particularly interested in the MegaSpore information as well as the IgG and the mucosa product. And so that's what I wanted. I always want to be as educated as possible when I first start to carry something. And what we can do just to make best of both of our time are skip the products that I know we won't be using. So as you're going through this, I'll just let you know, and this way we can focus on the ones that we'll be carrying.
Perfect. So do you want me to go ahead and start? Are we waiting for anyone?
Go ahead and start, and if she hops on, then she can just seamlessly, come on. And then if I won't take notes, if you'll send us whatever this presentation is after, this way I can share it with the team.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll record it as well as send you the slides. So first, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tracy Carmack. My bachelor's is in bacteriology. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist and a naturopathic. Hi, good to see you. What we got involved with, we got involved with microbiome labs because we moved to Idaho and found out that they're aerial spraying Roundup 3 times a year. They're spraying it on the forests so that they can kill the underbrush and clear cut the forests, and they're spraying it on the fields, not only on Roundup ready crops, but also to desiccate different crops because it's a short growing season. So everything is saturated, and we found out all of our neighbors up here have some form of cancer, and we wanted to restore the soil because, our background, we're from, the scientific, as far as practitioners, we know the connection between the soil microbiome and the gut microbiome. And as we were studying the microbiome early in 2016, as I was going to my CCN conference, I heard Kiran Krishnan speak. He was speaking on vitamin K2, which we'll cover, just briefly. If you haven't heard of vitamin K2 as far as being fermented in the gut and how important it is for mitochondria and making sure that the vascular system is not being overwhelmed with calcium deposition, and that just helps as far as anti-aging and just for longevity, but it still centered in the gut, that this is, if people have dysbiosis, they're not producing the vitamin K2, they're not absorbing their nutrients. So it doesn't matter what vitamins and minerals you're giving someone if they are not absorbing and utilizing these products. So as we studied more of the microbiome products, we found out these spore probiotics are not like anything we've ever used in a practice before. There was always confusing information from other companies. When to use the probiotic, use it with food, without food, at night, in the refrigerator, out of the refrigerator, this combination, that combination. And now that the science is out there with the Microbiome Project and the American Gut Project, we find out that all of these probiotics, if they're not in a spore form, are going to die in the stomach. They are not going to get past the gastrointestinal challenges. They will have just a limited effect through quorum sensing, but that effect is just one strain, one condition. If you have a spore probiotic, and these spores have been in the human gastrointestinal tract since the beginning of time. Each one of these spores are studied completely because each one is a pharmaceutical drug in Europe and Asia and have been for the last 60 years. So we know they're extremely powerful. What we did as a company is put them together in this combination. Each one has very specific metabolites that it produces, and we can show that our spores get past the gastrointestinal tract because we do the right type of studies. We use SHIME studies, and we'll go over what that is and how important that is, because that's the only way you can test a probiotic to see what it does in the gastrointestinal tract, how it gets along with the good guys, how it goes after any pathogens, and that it's completely safe. And that's why we use those studies. And any other company that does probiotics should be using those type of studies, or you're not getting good information. So I'm going to show you the results of those studies and how we know what our product is doing. So the first thing we want to understand is what we're focusing on to maintain gut integrity. So as a healthy gut, we know that the mucin 1 layer is where the microbiome actually is. The organisms that make up the microbiome, we know they need to be very diverse, represented by the different colors. We know that the immune system needs to be intact so that the secretory IgA can find and recognize the toxins, in this case, the lipopolysaccharide, which is the primary endotoxin, and that there is a good buffer that's going to absorb these toxins and then take care of them so that they're not going to harm the mucin 2 layer. And one of the primary aspects in order to do that is the second area of importance, which is maintaining certain keystone strains of bacteria that are part of your unique microbiome. This is another misnomer that has been perpetuated in this industry, is that you can add to or reseed a microbiome, and that's completely false. After 835 days or 2.5 years, your ability to change or to add to the microbiome is closed. You know, as a 2.5-year-old, after that point, it's a mature microbiome. You don't add to, change, or reseed a microbiome. What your mother gave you is your unique fingerprint, which you will have for the rest of your life. What you can do, however, is you can vastly influence that microbiome by increasing the good guys and decreasing the bad guys. And the spores are very much part of that mechanism. In fact, we've shown that if an infant is not exposed to bacillus spores, they will develop immune deficiencies. So these spores are intricately involved with developing our immune system, with regulating the Treg cells, which are the cells that determine self from non-self, and the importance of getting these spores exposure as soon as possible, even with newborns. If they've been compromised, if they've been born C-section or bottle fed, or a mother with, any type of, extreme health conditions or given antibiotics, it's imperative to get these spores into, early development so that the immune system, which is primarily in the gut, develops properly. The third step.
So it's very interesting to me that my daughter, who turns 2 next week, she was born, I had a home birth and she was born vaginally, but I have had candida on and off, very light level, nothing like what the clients that we see, but pretty asymptomatic, but had probably on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 or 2 eczema patches when I was pregnant, which I thought was just the stress of the pregnancy on my immune, because I'm an asthmatic, and I take steroidal drugs and have my whole life. But she, for the past 2 years, has had extraordinary issues with eczema, which we know is leaky gut. And we have a Chinese medicine doctor here who we've tested her stool, and she has candida, she has some viruses, and we've been on a 6-month eradication protocol. I mean, she basically lives the candida diet. She's never had sugar in her life, but whether it's berberine, oil of oregano, portiarco, I mean, she's taking a tremendous amount of supplements. And I said to him, he's always said he muscle tests, and he was like, no for probiotics, no for probiotics. And it's like, I'm like, well, she's 2 and we've been killing for so long. And at one point about a month ago, her body was completely clear. Like, I thought we were done, whatever we were doing was working, but then she got a little cold or whatever it was, stress on her immune system. And now she's having eczema issues again pretty badly. And we just started Saccharomyces boulardii. He was like, a half a pill, like you can start this probably in conjunction or in response to candida. But I'm just wondering what you're saying at 2.5. It's like we have 6 months before this kid's microbiome is sealed, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, we have found that we don't recommend going after specific pathogens because of those killing agents are hurting the innate microbiome itself. You know, it's already in trouble. And the best thing to do is to encourage the keystone strains, which are Akkermansia musciphylla, Faecalibacteria perniciae, Bifidolongum. And these organisms, again, you can't just give these organisms. You have to feed them so that they can thrive and they can start protecting the body long term. The killing agents are hurting those specific organisms without the proper food. So we need MegaSpore in there that gives them the full spectrum B vitamins, the antioxidants, the specific vitamin K that the organisms use in their mitochondria to thrive. And then we go in with the prebiotic, which are oligosaccharides, specific fibers that are going to help feed those. So we jumpstart them with MegaSpore, we feed them with the prebiotic, and then
you're breaking up.
Oh, so we jumpstart.
Oh, it's breaking up.
Well, let me see if I can reduce some things that might be pulling on the data feed here.
Okay.
Is it a little bit better? I might just have too many windows open. Okay, because we're up in the mountains, and the reception can be very challenging. Okay. So again, in your daughter's situation, it would be better to jumpstart those keystone strains, feed them so they thrive, and then seal the gut. That's what we call our foundational protocol, the total gut restoration, with no killing agents. Let her body protect itself by building up a good, diverse microbiome that is the primary defense of the immune system. And that's really what we're seeing with all practitioners. They're seeing mostly this leaky gut scenario where you've got too much lipopolysaccharide that's being released from the gram-negative bacteria because they're overgrown and they're suppressing the good gut bacteria, and that's creating, you know, these endotoxins that are eating into the mucin 2 layer, which then it's able to damage the epithelial cells and cause, you know, the zonulin to open up the floodgates, which now the endotoxin is in the immune, you know, it's affecting the immune system in the lumen, as well as leaking of undigested food particles, pathogens, and this is setting up a situation that's going to be a long-term chronic illness for all individuals that have this problem, especially for children. Okay, so you know, the lipopolysaccharide is where we focused our clinical trial information, because if you can study this mechanism right here, you can effectively help every chronic illness there is: diabetes, autoimmune disease, food sensitivities, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer. Everything is going to come back to this point because this is what's causing the low-grade chronic inflammation that's interfering with the immune system. So that's why we did our clinical trial on metabolic endotoxemia, which is the scientific word for leaky gut. And that's why MegaSpore has been so effective and is exponentially growing out there, because people are recognizing how it's working and how well it's working. Okay, so here's all of the conditions that lipopolysaccharide will affect, and you'll see these symptoms in your patients. Patients that start different type of, you know, this protocol and will get constipation is going to be because lipopolysaccharide shuts down the bowels. One of the first things people always remark on is how much happier they are or less anxious they are because of that gut-brain connection. And you see there's a couple of different mechanisms that directly affect depression. The lipopolysaccharide is going to interfere with the serotonin production and the dopamine production. You'll see individuals when they're in less pain are going to feel better because it's going to affect pain, mental illnesses. So this is why the gut is so central to affecting all of these different conditions. And we've put a lot of attention on the autoimmune. We have now 14 different clinical trials in progress. 2 of them, the Hashimoto's and the rheumatoid arthritis. But again, it's because we're elucidating the mechanisms that is central to all of these conditions. And this was our ground study that we published in August of 2017 in the Gastrointestinal Pathophysiology Journal. And not only did we study the effect of the lipopolysaccharide in, was the major thing we looked at, the LPS, and found that in 30 days we're able to arrest 45% of this toxin that was causing leaky gut, which is what put us on the map and why it's so important. But also in 30 days, significantly reduced triglycerides. We now have a published study on that. Significantly reduced ghrelin. So we're currently studying a weight loss in the spores. The MCP, these are different interleukins and inflammatory markers important for autoimmune disease. Those are still in progress. And then in 90 days, each of these analytes came into significance. So we have a study on diabetes because of the glucose and the insulin. This relates with the weight loss and just cancer, all different studies, as well as skin conditions. Currently at the University of Sacramento, we have preliminary results in the Department of Dermatology that the spore probiotics will reduce acne by 50%. And this, it's long been said that the skin is a reflection of what's going on in the gut. And we're breaking that out and really elucidating the mechanisms involved with that, as well as the whole.
What about all of the timing piece of, if somebody, we've all heard the 4 R's of gut healing. And like you said, you can't really reseed somebody's gut, but what about the timing and, specific nature of some things, like with SIBO, you're told not to give a probiotic during treatment because you can be feeding more of the bacteria that there's too much of, or while you're taking antimicrobials, not to take a probiotic because they're also being destroyed in that process. Where does MegaSpore stand with that?
Yeah, we've turned the whole industry on its head. We find that SIBO is more of a digestive order than it is a overgrowth disorder. And by increasing the bile flow and creating the environment to put back the pH barriers, that's how the organisms know where to live. So it puts them back into their proper zip codes, and the bile keeps the dysbiosis in check in the upper intestinal tract. And we've had great success doing MegaGuard with our total gut restoration. And I'll mention MegaGuard here later, because that's been a real breakthrough with getting the pH barriers back in place. And as far as the 4 R's, our R's are recondition, reinforce, and restore. So it's not going in replacing anything or reseeding anything, but it's helping the existing microbiome flourish. Our bodies have this intelligent modulation. These organisms have an intelligent modulation, and they're smarter than we are. So we know that by putting them back in place, they will take care of themselves for the most part. And then we look to see what's left over. And we look for the signs, the symptoms that will manifest. Is there a candida issue? Then we have a product, MegaMyco Balance. If there is a SIBO issue, then we have the product MegaGuard. So we start with the foundation. We use MegaSpore for the first month, the prebiotic for the second month, the megamucosa to seal the gut the third month. And then if there's anything that the body can't handle at that point, then we go and we have a customized protocol. So this is the SHIME study I mentioned earlier.
Are you saying that, oh yes, the SHIME study, yeah.
Yeah, so what SHIME stands for, it basically a simulation of the human intestinal tract or a synthetic GI tract. And that way, when you inoculate this with a microbiome, so you've got a living, thriving microbiome, and it's different for each section of the GI tract, and then you feed it different products. So you'll feed it say a lactobacillus or a bifidus or a probiotic, or you'll feed it a spore, and then you can go in and find out what happens to these products and how far along the GI tract they get. And that's how we know, after we've fed, several different companies' products, that 99% of them die in the stomach. So what you're dealing with is digested DNA and bacterial protein, which has a quorum sensing effect on the microbiome, but it's very limited, and it only lasts as long as you take those probiotics. Where with MegaSpore, you've got the spore, an endospore that's like a capsule, a spaceship, if you will, that gets past, that protects itself from, it's resistant to pH, it's resistant to heat, it's resistant to acid, and in some cases, time. You can find spores in archaeological digs, and they'll still germinate 2,000 years later. So we find that they, through quorum sensing, they know where they're at in the GI tract, they know who's in their environment, how many are in their environment, and what particular species are in their environment. So even before they come out of the spore stage, if there is a pathogen there, they can custom make a antibiotic specific for that pathogen, and they come out of the spore form, attack the pathogen, and then start producing vitamins and antioxidants and nutrients for the good gut bacteria. So they're really the regulators of the gut. They have a hierarchical quorum sensing, like a general in an army, so they know who should be there and who shouldn't. And we really have been led by the science in this, whereas a lot of the previous information has been guessing with other companies. So this is a recent study that we had published, and it showed that MegaSpore will jumpstart these keystone organisms, and then the prebiotic with these specific fibers will go in and increase them, help them to thrive. And the effect is an 80% increase, which is really dramatic. So we know the importance of feeding those, innate keystone strains and how important they are to the immune system of the gut. So that's why we start with MegaSpore, to go in to do the reconditioning, to help with the diversity. Then we follow it with feeding those organisms now that basically have been given a jump start, and help them to thrive. And then the last step is to seal the gut with MegaMucosa. And it has 3 different ingredients, one being the IgG 2000, which is an excellent concentrated immunoglobulin mix that regulates the immune system, neutralizes the lipopolysaccharide, and really helps by adding those amino acids that are going to help the goblet cells create more mucin that seal the gut. And then there's a citrus polyphenol that really shuts down the inflammation cascade that's occurring. Now, just to show you.
So a few questions.
Sure.
Can we go back? So why not start with doing the MegaSpore? Why give it a month and not just add the Mega prebiotic at the same time? If that's feeding it, why the first 30 days just the MegaSpore?
Because these products are so strong, we usually have to titrate them. We start with 1 capsule every other day for a week, and then 1 capsule a day for a week. And then by the third week, we're up to the 2 capsules, the recommended 2 capsules. We're taking these with food. And most people think, oh, I've been on a probiotic before. They try to just jump in with the 2 capsules a day, and they find out real quick that this is a real probiotic, one that's actually colonizing in their gut and making a big change. And if they've got a lot of dysbiosis and issues, they're going to get some side effects. They're going to get some die-off. And, we have a lot of our practitioners, started out doing it that way. They would just kind of muscle through it, and that was good, but they don't want their clients muscling through it, because some of them are just sensitive. They they don't want to lose a client, because they're having the first thing the client thinks is, what have you done to me? You've given me something that's making me sick. I'm not going to take it anymore. Whereas if we start them real slow, they can see the progress of how their whatever symptoms they came in with, whatever GI symptoms they were having, are going away. But they're starting slow enough that they're not going to get that die-off reaction. And by die-off, I mean anything GI. It's different for everybody. It can be the constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas, skin outbreaks. It's different for everybody. And what that means is that there's a weak link in whatever detoxification path these individuals have for processing those endotoxins,
right.
lipopolysaccharide, or the exotoxins from candida. And that's usually where it will manifest. And most of our practitioners, they're dealing with the most sensitive of the sensitive individuals out there. And they already know that everything they start them on, they're going to have to go low and slow. There are some cases we have to customize even the total gut restoration, that they may start with 1 capsule, and that's too much. They'll break open the capsule and they'll do a half. And for most people that helps.
Yep, and do a half. Yeah.
They can do half every other day. Some people
with the rebuild, I don't know if this is that I'm too specific on the semantics of seal the gut, and I know that we use that term quite often, but if there is a extreme overgrowth and one that just repopulating the gut is not going to completely eradicate, and then you go to the rebuild, but there's still bad microbial activity or maybe parasitic activity, what is the risk in that? And when do you know when you're giving them that rebuild? Because is this just me being crazy over semantics? But it's like, I mean, you want to seal the gut even if there's bad microbes in there, because we're not talking about sealing it so they can't get out. We're talking about sealing the synapses so that there's no longer leaky gut. But,
right,
just learning so much from Reed and him being so into the 4 R's. What are your thoughts on that piece of like rebuilding when someone's not fully healed?
Yeah, it still needs to take place, because the ingredients in this product, the IgG 2000, is so important to helping to modulate the immune system. Individuals that have had any kind of gut damage, they've also affected their immune system. And the IgG is going to help take the burden off of the secretory IgA. It's going to help the immune system recognize the toxins, the LPS and the exotoxins, as well as tagging viruses and parasites. So it's just a real help. And in some cases, people that you already know are extremely toxic, extremely immune damaged, we sell the product IgG 2000 as a standalone product, and you may want to pre-treat. You may want to, for a week, just use IgG 2000 to help the immune system to better tolerate the total gut restoration program. Again, we're dealing with some very sensitive people. 80% of most patients are going to be able to go onto this total gut restoration and get amazing results. It's that 20% that take up 80% of your time. So we're looking for them. We're trying to screen them out so that we can, give them a customized protocol so that they'll have a good experience as well, because they're the ones that fail almost every protocol you put them on.
Can I ask a quick question about the IgG 2000?
You bet.
Is that the Mega IG? Oh, I see. Okay, I wasn't sure. Is it included in any of the other products, or it's just a standalone?
It's
a
included.
standalone, and it's also in the MegaMycosa, but we bought the standalone series. We have a standalone if we are thinking about using that
Okay.
on Taylor.
Gotcha. And then I'm just curious with the spore, what makes it open up? I understand how it goes through the stomach so that the stomach acid doesn't break it down.
Mm-hmm.
When does it know to finally kind of unleash its power?
Yeah, that's what's so cool about this. It has quorum sensing, which is a chemical surveillance system. So even while it's in the spore form, it's kind of like pheromones. It knows where it's at, and it knows that it prefers the upper intestinal tract. It knows, who's in its environment. So when it's coming out of that spore stage, it's prepared for, is it going to help its friends or is it going to hurt its enemies? So it's got that higher intelligence aspect to it, which is really cool. It's a transient organism. So it doesn't reseed. It goes in, it colonizes for 21 to 24 days, and then it moves out through the feces. And if we were, back in a perfect world, we'd be growing our food in the garden. We'd be picking up these spores again, ingesting them again, and it would start the process all over, keeping us healthy. But that cycle's been broken, and that's why we see so many individuals with all these gut problems.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you see that people also need to do like the typical kind of Candida protocol or protocol for SIBO with different herbal things, and this is to do in addition to help that whole process, or you're finding that this alone is enough to treat things like SIBO or Candida overgrowth?
It really depends on the individual. We start with this kind of foundational protocol, and then if it's needed, we have some other tools to help. If Candida manifests, or if SIBO manifests, or C. diff or MRSA, there's things we look for, and then I'll show you what products we'd recommend. In the MegaSpore,
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome. In the MegaSpore, there are 5 different spores. This is one of those 5, and know that we were talking about some individuals are really sensitive. Sometimes we'll pre-treat with the IgG 2000. And by the way, you might have got the IgG 2000 as a standalone because our MegaMycosa was out of stock for a month or so, because we had to resource the amino acids because we were getting them from China. So of course, what's going on in the world. That stopped, so we now have a different source. We've got the product back in place, but that might be perhaps when I recommended initially in the ordering process, you might not have been able to get MegaMycosa. But know that the IgG 2000 as a standalone is extremely helpful for any kind of die-off. So in the MegaSpore, this is one of the 5 spores. It's the Bacillus subtilis, and it's really a powerhouse, kind of illustrated here by this standalone study that we did, showing that it by itself is going to reduce interleukin-6 by 45%, TNF-alpha by 55%, and then another study we've got that it reduces ammonia. It's so much so that Mercy Hospital and Cleveland Clinic used this exclusively in their hepatic encephalopathy ward for liver failure because of that ability to reduce the ammonia. So very powerful. And this is one of those that if you find those individuals you've opened the capsule for on MegaSpore, you've tried, to do a half, and they're like, I'm still getting bloating, I'm still getting gas, I still, I've got cramps, and then they try a 1/4 of a capsule or maybe an 1/8 of a capsule, and some people can't even tolerate a pinch. Their gut is so damaged and their immune system is so damaged that at that point, just tell them, hang on to your MegaSpore. We're going to get to that, but I'm going to start you on A258 to help your immune system, to retrain it, and we're going to work up to MegaSpore and graduate you to that eventually. And that's where we get around some of those real sensitive individuals, and because the spores help train the immune system. So this is like, starting them in elementary school instead of jumping them into high school. Okay, so this is another SHINE study we published, And this is showing that MegaSpore is as effective or even better than the drug rifaximin for IBS. And so this is what we would expect to see. If you're truly healing the gut, you should be able to tap into some of these serious gut conditions and perform better than the drugs. This is another probiotic. It has 2 of the spores, the same as the 1 spore probiotic, the A258, and then the Bacillus clausii. Again, amazing, both of these are pharmaceutical drugs, so we've got a lot of studies on this because it's in the pharmaceutical world, but we also add the Saccharomyces boulardii. And there's some situations where you may not have time to titrate someone up on MegaSpore to find out can they tolerate it or not, because they came into your clinic already telling you they're on an antibiotic. And in that case, I would put them just directly on this. You've got the yeast to go against yeast, which is going to happen with an antibiotic with the Candida. And then you've got the powerhouses here of 2 spores. And then, once they're off of the course of the antibiotic, then go ahead and put them on, the MegaSpore titration. But then during that time they're on the antibiotic, they're protected. And this is cool too. You don't have to worry about separating these spore probiotics from any killing agent, whether it's an antibiotic or a natural antibiotic, like a oregano or a biocidin, because these spores not only come out of the spore stage, they can go back into the spore stage, wait for whatever killing agent is in the environment, wait for it to leave, and then they come back out. And they're right there, Johnny on the spot, to start cleaning up the mess of whatever agent came through. So it's really handy. Your clients don't have to remember, do I take it with my antibiotic? Do I take it at night? Do I take it separated? They don't have to worry about it. It doesn't matter when you take the spores, they're not going to get hurt. Now, we talked about Candida.
So food or no food doesn't matter either.
Exactly. Now, with the spores, it's better to take them with food because they help produce digestive enzymes that help you digest your food. And they're using some of the nutrients in the food as well for their own, biochemistry to make good metabolites like serotonin and dopamine for the host, us, and for the other organisms in the microbiome. So with food is recommended, but the main thing is taking it. We talked about a Candida protocol, and this,
that helps when they actually take it.
yes, exactly. Because some people will call you and say, oh, I forgot to take it dinner and I took it before bed for the last week. Did I ruin my protocol? No, you didn't ruin your protocol. Change it. You get more optimal results. But the main thing is, taking it versus not taking it. Because, I tell people when I was in practice all the time, look, you've got all those products. They're not doing you any good in the cupboard. Get them in your intestinal tract. So this is what we recommend as a antifungal because it has this undelocyclic acid in it, which, other antifungals will go in there and they don't deal with the hypha problem. The hypha are like roots on the Candida, and they attach into the epithelial cells. Of course, they also destroy the tight junctions, but most antifungals will go in there and like mow the lawn, but they leave the roots and it comes back. The undelocyclic acid stops the hypha development, so it doesn't even attach. So that's very helpful, and then it just goes through the body. And then the B propolis is an excellent antifungal as well. So we put that in a combination. Like with all of our products, this is very strong. Start low, start slow. If you've dealt with, especially women with Candida, you know that it affects them mood a lot. So we've seen people that start too fast with this product. You'll call me in tears. I don't know what's happening. Well, you're releasing exotoxins that's going up the vagus nerve and making you crazy. So don't do that. Go slow. It also causes agitation. So that's one of for people with long-term Candida, it's invaded their nervous system. So just know that, start low, start slow, and you'll be fine. And they'll have so much more energy, once they're
What do you consider low and slow for this one?
Yeah, so the recommendation, it's 2 capsules 3 times a day. Start with 1 capsule the first day, 2 capsules the second day, 3 capsules the third. So just start, and if they have any reaction, they go back to the last dose that they were okay on, and then keep working up. You'll see this is great for vaginitis, for thrush, for
Is
candida.
the max the 2 twice a day?
Yes, for 3 months. So you're going to use 3 bottles, or a little over 3 bottles, to account for the titration. But then you want to stop. If they still have, you know, jock itch or whatever fungal issue they were dealing with, have them stop, do the total gut restoration for 3 months, and then go back, because you don't want to suppress, because again, this is going after yeast, but it will go after good yeast too. Okay, so you don't want to suppress any microbial population, because there's good guys you're dealing with too. So, you know, this is, you know, deal with it for 3 months and then go back to the total gut restoration and then come back. So it's a pulsing the 2 different protocols for those real serious, you know, infestations of candida. So
Does it matter if you take this one with food or not?
No, this one doesn't matter. The prebiotic, it doesn't matter. The MegaMycosa, it doesn't matter. The only recommendation for with food for optimal is the spores itself. So the MegaSpore, the HU58, the ResoreFlora. Oh, and the IgG 2000 by itself doesn't matter when you take it. So this is the MegaGuard, and I mentioned MegaGuard when we were talking about SIBO. Because of that phase 2.5 detoxification, we're finding that it's imperative that the bile is flowing properly because of its effect on keeping dysbiosis down in the upper intestinal tract. Those with sluggish bile will have more dysbiosis, more SIBO, because it breaks down the pH barriers. Sorry. It breaks down the barriers of, and that's where the organisms know where to live. That sets their zip codes. So once you get the bile flowing again, it works as a strong antimicrobial to keep dysbiosis down in the upper intestinal tract, and you'll see that that'll clear up a lot of the dysbiosis, the GERD, the reflux, the H. pylori. All of those are issues that deal with problems in the upper digestive tract. And you can start this just a week or 2 before you start the total gut restoration that deals with their lower digestive tract issues. This is wheat rescue. Of course, we're seeing more and more people become inflamed because of wheat proteins. This has the enzyme that will break the wheat and gluten and gliadin down into less than 8 amino acids, which at that point, they're no longer immunoreactive. We've got some spores in there to help with kind of a maintenance dose of keeping the spores in their gut, some SAC-B. And this is a real, you know, good formula for those, especially that you've educated about the importance of avoiding wheat and gluten. But we also know that even gluten-free restaurants and gluten-free menus in grocery store, you know, gluten-free aisles still have 30% of gluten and gliadin. So to just be sure that they're, you know, getting it all broken down, this is a really good formula. And this, you know, when I talk about maintenance dose, once you do the total gut restoration, you know, we typically will tell people 1 month of healing for every year that they've had a serious GI tract problem. So for most people, 3 months is sufficient, and then they'll, you know, the powders will run out, and then they'll just maintain with MegaSpore a couple times a week. Maybe they'll just take it on the weekends. So it you know, once the gut is healed and sealed and they've stopped whatever destructive behavior that was happening to cause it, they should be able to maintain with just keeping the spores, you know, in their gut because of that 21 to 24 days and keeping the population up. They don't have to take it every day, just, you know, on the weekends. And patients love to hear that, you know, this is a program that does a job. Once the job's done, you know, it's just a maintenance. We have a specific fish oil that's designed for the gut. We, you know, made sure that these pre-resolving mediators, which is what shuts down inflammation, that we've quantitated them. You'll see that a lot of other companies don't tell you, how much of these PRMs are in there. They don't tell you that there's how much DPA is in there. So we're trying to raise the bar on all products that have to do with the microbiome and the gut, and fish oil is one of them. We know that dogs' microbiomes are very similar to humans, and we've got an ongoing study with dogs, and so far all the results are showing exactly what we see in humans, that the spores shut down the endotoxin and help the gut heal. And I know you've been working with the public, that people are very attached to their animals, and they usually bring up not only what other family members could take MegaSpore, but can their animals take MegaSpore? And they've been doing it for years, so we've just made it official. Cats can also take this product, and so we're trying to, again, just make sure
And why not call it MeowSpore, you dog lovers, you?
Say that again?
Then it should be called MeowSpore.
Yes, and I think because so many people were asking about cats, that they've been looking at it to make sure that it was fine, and it is. But yeah, they'll eventually come out with a specific product with the for cat lovers.
Yeah.
And then really the company, the first product we ever had was the vitamin K2. And the reason was because of how important, that's a fermented product in the gut. And people that have dysbiosis will also have a deficiency in K2. If they're taking vitamin D in high amounts, they're gonna even more suppress their vitamin K2. And what we're seeing across the population are so many symptoms of vitamin K2 deficiency, in energy, in bone density, in atherosclerosis, anywhere where there's calcium deposits in the brain, in the nervous system, in the muscles, it's a vitamin K2 deficiency, because all of those are K2 dependent receptors that ionize calcium. So vitamin K2's job is to ionize calcium in soft tissue and move it back to the bones. So this goes right along with gut dysbiosis, because you can start looking for these symptoms of high blood pressure, hardening of the arteries, and Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, because of the calcium deposits that are plaquing all over the body. So they go hand in hand. We have two different vitamin K2 formulas. One has some K1 in it, because your body spares K1. If you're deficient in K1, it'll convert your K2 to K1. So we have got some.
So we always sell a vitamin D with vitamin K. We use Metagenics.
Yep.
And wondering, so there's K2 in their multivitamin typically, and then we recommend to almost everybody, depending on their lab tests, the vitamin D with the vitamin K. So in what scenario would you have somebody take standalone vitamin K when they're already taking it in conjunction?
Right. So what we've found with the ones that combine them, that vitamin K is not stable when taken with a D. So that's a problem. Kieran Krishnan, most of the K2 out there we supply. He was one of the original K2 manufacturers. So he knows a lot about K2. So the stability is a huge issue. The quantity is a huge issue. Your microbiome itself will use up 45 to 90 micrograms, because these organisms use K2 as their primary mitochondrial fuel source. So if you're taking anything less than 90 micrograms, your body's not getting any benefit. You have to have at least 300 micrograms for the host, as in us, benefiting from the K2. So if you look on the back of ours, our brand name is MegaGold. MegaGold is the most stable K2 on the market. It's natural, and we've tested it as far as that 300 micrograms. Anything less than 300 micrograms, like I said, is not going to get into the host. So I haven't looked at Metagenics label in a while, so I'm not sure if, you know, if it meets any of those requirements. And we came out with two.
I'm looking at it right now, and
What does it say, Siri?
it's 80 micrograms. So I'm curious if you're saying that we can't absorb the K2 when it's with when it's combined with the D. Is that something that you tell clients to then always take them separately, or like at different times of the day, or they just can't be combined in the same actual supplement?
Right now, is that a gel cap? Is the D?
Yes.
No, it's you know what? I'm sorry. I'm looking at a different DK2 that I have. It's not the one that we carry. Sorry.
Yeah. So the gel caps, you'll see.
This one is lipos.
Yeah, some of them that are liquid or gel caps, those are the ones that are unstable when you combine them. The vitamin D in powdered form that would be in a capsule is just not absorbed. So the K is probably okay, but the D isn't any good. The fact that it's 80 micrograms means that the K2 is just going to benefit your microbiome and not you.
Well, but we are our microbiome, so but yes, I see what you're saying.
Right,
that
right,
then the other uses will not be.
Exactly, yeah, anything, because we've seen with ours, blood pressures drop, kidney stones dissolve. I mean, those are the kind of things you should be able to see if it's actually pulling calcium deposition deposits out of the soft tissue.
I'm looking at our Thorn product. So the Thorn is 200 micrograms of vitamin K2 as methylphenidate, and then the vitamin D, 1,000, so 25 micrograms to the 200 of vitamin K.
Yeah, still not enough K2, and yet they're combined. So is that a gel cap or a powder?
It's a liquid.
Oh, liquid. Okay, yeah. So yeah, then it's the K2 is not going to stay in the right. It's going to get broke down.
So if they're taking it separately, then like literally different times of the day, is there a certain amount of time that needs to separate them, or?
They can take it together. I mean, they can take it at the same time. It just can't be stored together. So it's the fact that when it's in storage together,
okay.
Yeah, they're breaking down. So they can still take them as long as they're not mixed as a product. So this is the study that we published this study, and we wanted there's so much published on vitamin K2 that we wanted to find an area that hadn't been published on. So we focused on cardiac output and blood volume. So the results was that this will increase cardiac output by 13%, which in the world of cardiology is huge, and it increases blood volume by 25%, which is also huge, because if you can imagine you're increasing your blood flow, you're getting more nutrients to your tissues, to your muscles. So this is great for developing bones for children. It's great for athletes. It's great for people that can't exercise, because what they do, they'll get more out of it. So again, it's a great formula. And this compares the two. Basically, if you've got someone already on other minerals, then just use the MyoMax so you're not doubling up. And then we have the stool test, which is upsetting the whole industry of stool testing, because this is the most accurate one on the market at 98%. All others do not compare. They're at best 50% accurate when it comes to the bacterial identification. We use our partners Cosmos ID, the only company that has received a FDA accuracy award. So if you do stool testing, then we can maybe schedule another time to go through the sample report and show how we're different and kind of making our mark in the stool testing world.
So why take this test if the answer is going to still be to do the gut transformation protocol?
Excellent question. And for the last 5 years, you know, people were sending us stool kit samples from all these different companies, and that's what we were telling them. If you already know our program works, why waste the money on doing a stool test? And well, you know, we go to functional medicine conferences and we have to do pre and post testing, and that's what our patients expect. And so finally we gave up. It says, okay, if we're going to talk to you about stool testing, we're going to go out there and find the most accurate stool test on the planet and just talk to you about that, because the others we know are garbage. So this is the result of what we found. So
so you personally don't think that there's that you'd rather people spend their money on the high quality supplements than to see what's in their gut, because your recommendations would be the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you work with these products long enough, you will understand what the signs and symptoms mean and then what to recommend in order to customize it. There are people out there that really want to geek out. They want to know exactly what organism and what ratios and alpha and beta diversity and what clearing of, you know, what ammonia and methane, and that's great. We can provide all of that. But if you just want to get the answer to your patients, then I would say, yeah, focus on the products.
And does your test for things like parasites and H. pylori and just other things other than just bacteria, or is it just strictly bacteria test?
We're launching it in 3 phases because the bacterial identification was so dramatically better than what was out there. We launched that in January. In June, we've got 15 more analytes we're going to add to it, and then in October, 15 more. So, you know, as it evolves, eventually it will be the be-all and end-all. Right now, it doesn't have the parasites, but it will.
Gotcha.
Okay, great. Do you have any, I'm sure there's some sort of, what would be the word, like a PDF or something that goes through each supplement like you did and the recommended, you know, as you went through with us. Do you have something put together so that we know how to start off slowly with each person on these?
Yes, I have in the signature of my emails, there's a link that says TGR booklet. So that's for total gut restoration. That is the protocol. And that gives you that titration schedule for the 3 months. I also have a quick reference guide in different forms that I can send you. And we've got a lot of resources. So each email kind of focuses on, you know, a different aspect of, you know, whichever product. So, you know, keep my number handy. If there's anything I'm not providing that you need more specific information on, just let me know.
Will you speak to if we were doing a protocol for a toddler and what we were talking about before, you know, how I would start with a 2-year-old?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anybody you want to customize a protocol for, especially while you're learning, just let me know. We'll sit down, we'll lay it out on what to do, what products you need, and then keep in touch to see how the person is responding to it. So we'll, you know, guide you through so you feel confident.
So can we do that for Tilly, and then whatever program you make for her, I can muscle test and see what's going on our end?
Sure. Now, Tilly is your 2.5-year-old daughter or 2-year-old daughter?
Yeah, she's 2 and she struggles with eczema flare-ups.
Okay, super. Okay, so did you say she already started on MegaSpore?
No, she right now is only on a half dose of a Espelarti that we had at the office through Original Medicine, Jordan Rubin, Garden of Life.
Mm-hmm.
And she's right now taking many antimicrobials, and we've been doing that for a while, as you said, you know, that's harming the, I mean, she had gotten completely better. It was only in this last couple of weeks do we see a flare up again. So I'm feeling like might be time to take another route.
Right. I would take her off all of the antimicrobials. The SAC-B is fine. I would start adding, break open a capsule and dust her food. It's probably the best way to just test it. Just sprinkle a little in some applesauce, stir it up, maybe an eighth to a fourth of a capsule, just to see how she does. Do that. You could do that every other day for a few days and then increase it. And then if there's, any type of, if she gets cramp, gas, diarrhea, any kind of response, just keep track of what was the last dose you gave her. Say you got up to a half of a dose, and then when you went to a full capsule, it was too much. So then just keep it that half dose until everything is stabilized, and then slowly start increasing it up to the full capsule. You can try that IgG 2000. You say you're at the half capsule and everything's fine except every other day she gets a headache or something. Then try a capsule to a full capsule of the IgG 2000, because that's just going to help mitigate that LPS. Because anytime someone has gut damage, pathogens, there's always going to be LPS involved. So I would use those two products to get her up to the full capsule a day, and then just keep working up. As soon as you hit the 2 capsules a day, then I would start with the prebiotic, just a fourth to a half of a scoop of that. And again, you're just slowly working these products up as it's rebuilding the immune system, rebuilding back all of the components of the gut. And then by that 3rd to 4th month, you should be able to get to the MegaMycosa. You should probably be out of the IgG 2000 by then, and that's fine because there's IgG 2000 in the MegaMycosa. And then once the powders have finished, just let them run out and keep her on a maintenance dose of the MegaSpore, which should be, for her age, probably a capsule a week.
And do you spread that out, like you said, dusting the food?
Well, once she's finished the program, she should be able to tolerate the full contents of that. And if it's easier for you to give her all at once, it's fine. If not, you can spread it out too. Just don't mix it in water and then save it, because it'll start to ferment. So just mix what you're going to give her that day.
Okay, when you said work your way up to a full dose, which is I know for adults it's the 2 capsule. Well, it's the 2 capsules twice a day. I mean, is that a full dose for a 2-year-old?
At that 2.5 years old, they have a mature microbiome. So there's no risk of overdosing in the spores. It's all about how much tolerance, how much damage their gut has that will manifest itself in symptoms. So once you've got her past all the symptoms, she can tolerate 2 capsules because her microbiome is mature.
Interesting. So then it really doesn't become about age or weight.
No.
For any adult. It's just about the microbiome.
Yes.
So the dosing really stays the same.
Right. It's only about the tolerance. Now there's
so then as a, or what were you going to say?
No, I was going to tell you about overgrowth situations. Say if someone had a severe C. diff or MRSA, or they're either in the hospital or on their way. In those situations, we do 2 ResoreFlora in the morning, 2 MegaSpore at lunch, and 2 HU58 at dinner. And we just use the philosophy of competitive exclusion to force out or to outproduce the pathogen. And we'll do this in cases of food poisoning.
So you as a company do not believe in microbials, antimicrobials at all?
I think we do. We just try to see how much the body will help itself first.
Can you repeat that protocol? You said 2 ResoreFlora in the morning, 2
MegaSpore at lunch.
MegaSpore midday?
Yes, and then 2 HU58 at dinner.
And why the 2 HU58 at dinner when that is a strain in the MegaSpore? Why not just take, why are we upping that strain in particular?
Because it's at 5 times the dose of what the Bacillus subtilis is in MegaSpore, and so you're really pushing the colony count at that point because you've got an infectious overgrowth.
And what about for pregnancy?
All of our products have been used with women that are pregnant, want to get pregnant, are pregnant, or just deliver. We just caution the things like the MegaMyco balance, not to use that because, again, it can be we don't want to do anything that will cause cramping. So if you use any of the products, just go very low and very slow.
Right.
And I would avoid using any of the products that have the herbs in it, like the MegaGuard or the MegaMyco balance, until after she's delivered.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So then the company's perspective is they're not anti-killing agents, but you believe that in any microbiome imbalance, that first 3 months should be taken to redo this the transformational protocol, and then if they still have symptoms, that's when you go in with the antimicrobials, and then you'd redo the gut restoration again.
Yes. So the philosophy would be the terrain. The terrain is everything. That if we change the environment, the organisms are smarter than we are, and they can do more to help themselves than we can figure out how to help them.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. We are, just excited to have these new products, and we'll definitely be emailing you a lot in the beginning. Sounds like with anyone healthy as well, just starting slow, starting with 1 capsule, going up to 2. And for the MegaSpore, what is because I have the Myco, the one that we were talking about, for the MegaSpore in and of itself, what is the full dose of that?
Sorry, the question is, what is the full dose of MegaSpore or the MegaMyco?
Yeah.
Yeah, the full
The
dose.
MegaSpore.
Yeah, that's 2 capsules at the largest meal.
Okay. And you're saying someone in maintenance who's healthy really only needs to do this a couple of times a week?
Right. And one way
if they haven't been exposed, let's say someone who doesn't have any GI issues but wants to be taking a probiotic, do they have to do anything before, we'd work their way up, but do they need to do something every day for a period of time before they just start taking it, a couple of times a week? Or is it work themselves up to 2 capsules at largest meal 3-4 times a week, but they never have to do any sort of foundation? They won't have to go beyond, does everybody at some point have to feed the MegaSpore? So there's my next question with the prebiotic. You said taking the MegaSpore for a month and then adding in the prebiotic for a month. Then when you go back into maintenance, is it that you don't need to feed the probiotics anymore, even though we know that they're not necessarily staying in the system forever? Wouldn't there always then be a need, or are we then relying on the natural prebiotics in food?
So the prebiotic is primarily for the keystone strains that MegaSpore jumpstarts: the Akkermansia musciphylla, the Faecalibacterium perniciae, the Bifido species. So we're feeding them to give them a healthy foothold into the microbiome. And then they should be self-maintained with just a healthy diet, just a normal life once the gut is sealed. So the MegaSpore is hardy enough, you don't have to add, you're not feeding the prebiotic for the MegaSpore. It's feeding off of what you eat. And then it's moving on. So it's not staying in there. The prebiotic is just to give those gut bacteria your mother gave you a healthy foothold to maintain itself.
So the prebiotic would really be like a one-time thing once you've started incorporating the MegaSpore.
Correct. Yes. So the total gut restoration is designed for 3 months, and a person should be able to maintain that. Now, there's the exception of if they have surgery, if they experience a life-changing event, if they took antibiotics. So if they mess up their microbiome again, they may have to repeat this system, but it won't take as long as, and they won't have the symptoms that they would the first time.
And what are your thoughts on if somebody has SIBO, and we've been taught traditionally to certainly not add in prebiotic, let alone probiotic? What are your thoughts on that?
We've got a lot of SIBO practitioners. They go low and slow with all the products. They've had no problem. I would say select an individual and give it a try. I think the information that we were given early on did not have good scientific backup to support their recommendations.
Yeah. Okay. Siri, and then lastly, Tracy, are there any podcasts or where, your CEO or scientists are speaking more about this? Are there some more resources you can send us via email so that we could just start to really absorb this? I think that probably both Siri and I are taking this in and going, okay, these are new products. We're not really super familiar with them. This is quite different than some of the information that we've been taught in functional medicine. Are there ways that we can really get fully trained? I feel that we sell products really well that we feel uber confident with.
Absolutely. Kiran Krishnan, our microbiologist, is the most requested speaker on microbiome in this space. And just putting his name, Kiran, and microbiome in YouTube, there'll be about 60 videos pop up. And he's covered everything. And on our website, there's a tab that says webinars. And there's one on autism, on gut infections, so there's several there.
I see it. Yeah.
And even in
Okay,
YouTube,
great.
I've got
And,
well, I was going to say, I've done 35 different YouTube videos as well. So yes, there should be tons of information, but I have even more if it doesn't cover everything you're looking for.
Okay. And are you familiar with the company Seed?
I've heard the name, but I don't remember what they sell.
They do a probiotic, and I know that I'm just wondering if you had heard of it and what your thoughts were, because they also do a lot of, just high level educating, but I don't know if it's in spore form. It's hard to tell from their website, but I was just wondering if you had heard of it and if you knew anything about it.
Yeah, I think I've just heard of it in passing. I would always say look at the ingredients on the bottles. If they don't, clearly specify that these are bacillus spores and that they have strain numbers on there, then really push them for the SHIME studies, because that's really the only way to know what these organisms do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Siri. Do you have any other questions? We can connect
that
after.
Covers it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Really
You're welcome. And I'm
Tracy,
thrilled.
thank you for your time, and we'll definitely be in contact.
Excellent. I love getting you the information, and people that are really wanting to get in the weeds about this. We're all about it. In fact, we're going to do our second annual keynotes presentation in Scottsdale, Arizona. So if you really are wanting to, excel in the world of microbiome, they're going to have a wonderful lineup bringing in all the world's experts. So I'll send you some information and you can check it out.
Awesome. Okay, you stay safe up there and we will connect soon.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Tracy. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.